It's a real pleasure to introduce Bill Warner, who is the founder of, the brains behind, and
gosh.
everything behind the Amelia Island Concours. Welcome to the AutoLab.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell
I wish you guys would do shows at 10 o'clock in the morning, because when I'm at my age, I like to sleep on Saturday. However,
That's coming next week, Bill.
no, this week and next Saturday, we've got about 70 people in here. We're doing what we call the bag packing today, where we pack the bags for the entrance. And then next week is the pod packing, where we load everything in pods that go up on the island. So Saturdays are not free until after May 24th.
So tell our listeners, Bill, what Amelia Island Concours is all about, how you got started in it, how you got into the car culture. You've always been a car guy, I understand.
Yeah, since birth. I don't remember a time where I wasn't into cars. Even when I was a kid, my tricycle was a Buick, and my mother says my first word was Chevrolet. So I'm kind of a GM guy, but no, I just was always into cars, although I couldn't afford them. I worked for a Volkswagen dealership back when I was a teenager, driving a parts truck and a courtesy wagon, and the owner, Sonny Sager, owned a race team called Scuderia Mickey Mouse, and Mighty Mouse, and I got to go to the races when I was 16, schlepping tires and coffee. This was before there were rules about being 18. And I think the first race I went to with him was 1959 at Denellen, Florida, when I was 16. And I inhaled castor bean oil and heard the sound of a Testarossa, and boy, that
was it.
I was already hooked, but I mean that just set me over the top. Amelia Island started when a lady named Patty Hendricks, who was a PR lady at Ritz-Carlton, asked me if I would do a concours, and I made my living in the filter business. We sold filtration equipment for industrial applications, but it supported my car habit. And I told her, well, I had confidence if I could do it. I'm not an event guy. I'm an electrical engineer by education. And I said I had confidence we could do it. And as I jokingly say, confidence is the feeling you have when you don't truly understand the situation. So, we looked at it and we said, well, Jacksonville's a good location. It's about 1,300,000 people in the area. We're equidistant between Miami and Tampa and Atlanta and Charlotte. And we draw from, probably 16, 17, 20 million people. And then the Ritz-Carlton's a 5-diamond resort. It's the only one of two 5-diamond restaurant and hotels in the state of Florida. And so that made sense, because you want to have a concours at a resort or a destination area. First year I think we had 2,400 people, and we had what we call no-see-ums, bugs, and kind of dodgy weather, but we had Sir Sterling Moss.
Oh, so VWs were there.
Bugs.
Not till about 2 years ago, when we did custom coachwork Volkswagen, and we had Dowers and Romeshes and all these really great VWs that we even had a 4-door Beetle taxi. And I think it's the only one in the United States.
Wow.
Probably 4 left.
That went over real well, didn't it, Bill?
Yes, it did, because everybody has a Volkswagen story, right?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
You went to college in one, or you met your girlfriend in one, or it's the only thing you could afford.
A frozen one.
Or you tried to fix one and you couldn't fix it.
Well, they were pretty simple. So every year we do a goofy class. Well, we call it internally a goofy class. We don't do that publicly because someone might be offended, but I've worked with Wayne Carini over the years on stuff. And we did one called What Were They Thinking, where we went out and got the ugliest cars we could find. We did one called Cars the Cowboys, where we got the cars with the horns and the silver dollars and the leather. And, we had the Roy Rogers car, the Gene Autry car, the Buck Jones car. I think we had 8 cars of famous cowboys. And then we did great hunting cars, which took me 10 years to put together, with the King Ranch Buick, with the carbines and the fenders and all that. With a Concours, a Concours is about elegance and presentation and history. But every now and then you got to throw in a class for people who don't care about cars. They're drugged to the show by their husbands or their wives, and you got to give them something that entertains them, and that's what the goofy class is for.
Goofy
That's what
class.
sets your concourse different from a lot of other ones, right, Bill?
I guess, I grew up in the racing world. So when we started, we took what we figured were the best ideas from Meadowbrook, now St. John's, and some ideas from Pebble Beach. But then we did our own ideas.
Yeah.
And we have two fairways. So we said, okay, one fairway is going to be for sports and racing. The other car is going to be for the other side is going to be for classic. And then we decided to do two best in shows because it's hard to compare a Ferrari GTO with a Duesenberg SSJ. They're both spectacular and they're both should win shows. So I had a friend of mine from Europe who said, you're so crazy. You can have but one best in show. I said, no, man, we got two fairways. We got two themes. So we started the two best in show program about 10 or 15 years ago. But I really like, Gene Jennings, my friend who used to be the editor of Car and Driver, used to refer to concours as dead car shows. And we wanted to breathe some life into it. So for me, you crank up a helmet turbine or a Shadow Can-Am car or a McLaren M8F and the leaves shake and the seagulls go flying off. That's what makes the show. It gets people's blood rolling,
I like.
You also got the Cackle Fest, which is I love
we did
that.
That was the first time. That was 2 years ago. And at the time, there was a guy at McLaren. He's no longer there. Got all upset because his cars were sprayed with a little bit of alcohol. And I heard about that for a couple of months afterwards. They later shipped him to China. I don't know what.
What's a cackle fest?
Yeah.
That's where you bring in top fuelers, and they're old. They don't run them much anymore. They do run vintage drags, but you crank them up on gasoline and you turn them on alcohol and you let them sit there and cackle and you rev them up and everybody gets excited. It blows.
Yeah.
All at the same time.
You guys, you always have an honoree from the motorsports, right? Every year.
Roger Penske.
Wow.
Thrilled to have for our 25th anniversary. And this year we're going to have Lynn St. James, the first woman to be Rookie of the Year at Indy. Won the GTO race single-handedly at Watkins Glen, drove for Jack Roush.
Wow.
I knew her years ago when she was racing a Pinto. So she's come a long way, and we're real thrilled to have Lynn here. And other folks will be here will be Derek Bell, Brian Redmond, David Hobbs, Hurley Haywood, Justin Bell. We lost some of our Indy folks this year because we had to move from March to May. We generally have Johnny Rutherford. And I have to say, we lost one of our friends who was here with us last year. That was Bobby Unser.
Yeah. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, when these shows, people always ask, "What's the magic? What did you do that other shows didn't do?" Mm-hmm. And I think it boils down to we really embrace people, drivers, and the history, and the fact that you can go on the field and in the past few years you could run into Richard Petty, Johnny Rutherford, Hurley Haywood, shake hands, get pictures made. You can't do that at the races. So it's about honoring our heroes or heroines and having an opportunity for them to meet them.
Alex, I know you're going to be down there in 2 weeks, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I'm going every year. I'm going to volunteer.
It's the best show.
I told Bill I'm going to start volunteering every year to help out with whatever they got. It's 650 volunteers, right, Bill?
Yeah, about a little more than that. In fact, we'll have about 80 of them in here this morning at the office doing the bag packing. It's like I spent 30 years in the Air Force Reserve. I call this the Ritz-Carlton is about 40 miles from our office, so it's like a mobilization exercise for us. It's all portable, and that's not much of a challenge, really. Utilizing pods, we can load everything in. And 4 pods, we could have most of the show up there on the island.
Hey, Bill, can you talk about the charities that you're all involved? I mean, that's the main thing that's behind this whole thing for you.
Yeah,
right?
what started for the first 8 years, I wasn't an employee. I did everything on a laptop. And at the time, my father was passing away and hospice took care of him. So when the Ritz-Carlton came to me, they said, "Would you do this?" I said, "I'll do it, provided we support a local charity." So we did community hospice, and we've expanded it. I have a granddaughter who was born spina bifida, which is a very debilitating birth defect. Many spina bifida people can't hold jobs. They can't walk. It's tough. So we support spina bifida. We're the largest single contributor to spina bifida in the area, and maybe in the of events in the United States. We support Shop with Cops program for underprivileged children on Nassau County and Fernandina Beach, where we match up police officers with young at-risk youth, and they shop at Christmas with them. That's part of the bonding of the local community to the police force, unlike other areas of this country.
So not only do people go to your event and have a great time, but you're also raising money for a lot of good causes.
Yeah, and even though I'm Air Force, we raise money for the Navy Marine Corps Relief Fund. So
very good. Ian, did you have a question?
I do actually. There's a question from Facebook, Bill. So Fred wants to know what your perspective of where the industry is going with EVs and what that might mean for the collector car.
Well,
Concours.
Tell Fred that's an interesting question. When COVID hit, we sat there and said, boy, we've got to be relevant to what's going on here. So we decided to do a theme on traditional electric cars dating from 1895 to 1922. And then we went to the manufacturers and say, this is a good opportunity to tell your story on electric cars. So we have 9 manufacturers who are going to be showing cars here at the show, some for the very first time. We've got the new Cadillac Lyric, the Humvee, the Hummer Electric. We've got the Jim Farley is bringing down the Ford Mach-E's. We've got the Lucid, the Bollinger truck and off-road vehicle.
Wow.
The Super Performance has done an all-electric, I want to call it a 427 because it looks like a 427 Cobra. The Volkswagen's doing the ID4. Porsche's going to unveil their new, I would call it the entry-level Taycan. You know, 90 grand is an entry level for you.
Hey,
but
it's 5 figures, not 6.
Yeah. BMW is showing the Mini Electric, which is really, it's pretty good with the tax rebates and everything. You can be into a Mini Electric for, in the 20s. And so every manufacturer is going to have an opportunity to showcase their new electric cars, but we'll have the traditional historical electrics on the field also.
Wow.
Now, where is it going? I wish I knew. It's being driven generally. It's starting with the European countries and countries like France, which don't have an oil resource but generate a lot of electric power through nuclear. Electric made a lot of sense in some cases. If you go from Paris to Brussels, for example, it's like going from Jacksonville to Savannah. It's not a big deal. Here in the United States, it's a lot different. Our distances between cities, many times are 200 to 400 miles. What I see in the future is if someone wants an electric car, it'll be their second car or their primary in-town car. I think there's still a lot of future in ICE, and with the new syn fuels that Volkswagen's come out with, and Toyota's and BMW both pushing hydrogen. I think that the battery-powered electric, in my opinion, is kind of a stopgap for maybe 10 years. There'll be new technology that'll take over from that. But even hydrogen-powered cars, some of them generate power to power electric motors.
Right. We have another question here from Facebook. How does the regular guy get into the inflated collector car market?
Work hard.
So, Bill,
I started, and my first collector car I bought was 1976, and I was on the road in South Carolina selling filters, and I ran into a friend of mine at a newsstand. I was picking up the road and track, and there was a story about Birdcage Maserati. He said, "Boy, I know where there's one here in a junkyard here in Columbia." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "How long will it take us to get there?" He says, "Oh, 10 minutes." I said, "Let's go." So we went out to the junkyard, and it wasn't a Birdcage. It was a 450S, and he'd already sold it. But I said, "Well, I'm looking for a project." Well, he had a Brabham BT8. And at the time, I kept thinking Brabham Formula Car, and I said, I'm not really interested in a Formula car. No, this was a BT8. This was a 2-liter sports racer, like a Lotus 23. So I go out in back of the shop at this junkyard repair shop in Columbia, South Carolina, and there was the ex-Denny Holm Tourist Trophy winning Brabham BT8. Undefeated in under 2-liter racing, ran at Riverside, Laguna Seca, Tripoli, North Africa, Alton Park, Silverstone. It ran all over the world, and I bought it for $2,900, and that was my first collector car.
And that was probably a lot of money back then too, maybe, right?
Well,
In perspective
my
of things.
I just bought my wife a new Oldsmobile station wagon. I threw a trailer hitch on it, left Jacksonville at sunrise, and went up to Columbia, picked up the car and brought it back with a rope tied around the nose and the tail so it wouldn't fall off. It had 2 flat tires. And I pulled up at 11 o'clock at night. My wife came out the front door in her gown and looked at it, and she says, do me a favor. I said, what's that? She says, will you get up before sunrise and take that over to Rich Lee's shop before everybody thinks you've lost your mind?
So Bill, as an electrical engineer and a car guy, do you feel any conflict between those two worlds?
I was a really lousy electrical engineer, so no, I don't feel any conflict. I took electrical engineering. When I got to the Citadel, there were 2 engineering. My dad wanted me to go to University of Florida and be a mechanical engineer. I couldn't see going to a school with 30,000 students. So I went to the Citadel military school up in Charleston. And when I got to the campus for a visit, the CEs were out on a hot parade ground. It was like 90 degrees with their transits, and they're all sweating. And all the double E's were up in the air-conditioned lab. And that's me. I think there were 18 in my class, and I graduated 18th.
Oh, no.
The
Lower
professor,
1 percentile.
You did pretty good.
the head of the department was the Colonel Orrin Herring, and he said to me, Mr. Warner, are you really going to be a practicing electrical engineer when you get out of here? I said, Colonel, absolutely not, man. I said, I just satisfy my father. He said, good, I'll give you your diploma then.
He didn't want you to shame the trade, I guess.
No, I'm good on light bulb changing. That's about
Hey, Bill, tell us how you guys started the Cars and Coffee and why at the Amelia Island.
Well, that was started by Malcolm Hogan, who's on our board, and Chris Brewer. I guess it started about 20 years ago. It was kind of a national movement, but I think somebody turned it into a franchise. I think it kind of started on the West Coast with donut derelicts and was it Crystal River or Crystal Cove, and every town has guys who are passionate about cars and looking for something to do. So a Saturday morning Cars and Coffee made sense. So we looked at the Concours d'Elegance, and it's not inexpensive to come to the show. And it's up there with we market our ticket price kind of like what you cost to go to a Jaguar game or a symphony, something high end. And so we figured, well, let's do a show for the public that's free on Saturday. So we invite the clubs in and make it open to the public for free. And this year, I mean, we're packed. I think we got room for 450 cars. I think we got 460.
Wow.
On the Concours, we're at like 230 cars, but 230 of the very, very best.
I mean, the Cars and
Bill,
Coffee.
Bill, tell our listeners where they can contact you and how they can get more information.
Easiest way to go on our website, www.amelia, AMELIA, Concours, CONCOURS, no E on the end, .com.
Right. Concourse.
Well, it's funny because everybody milks you. You know, you got something going and someone always comes in on it. So some clown up there put in a shopping center he calls the Amelia Concours with an E on the end. I often wonder how many people pull into his parking lot on Sunday morning wondering where the cars are.
Leave it to us
Doing it like
Americans.
Google Maps. It says I'm here.
Hey, Bill, not to bring up a negative, but I you read that you had a relationship with Carroll Shelby, and I was just wondering, how that what was that like? I'm a big fan, and did you see the movie Ford vs Ferrari?
Oh yeah. Derek Bell put it best. He said, if you're not into cars, if you just want to be entertained, it's a great movie. If you're into racing and you know what's going on, you go, that never happened. Like staring at each other at 220 miles an hour down the Mulsanne. I don't know too many people that do that. And then he looks at the other guy and he says, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to downshift. Well, you don't go, 8,000 RPM at fifth gear and go to fourth gear. Not if you want to stay in a 24-hour race. That's Jollywood there. I guess if you call it poetic license. Charlie Agapoo was the young guy in there, and I know Charlie, and the guy looked like Charlie was when he was that age. Shelby was funny. He when I had a car, came out of the same junkyard in South Carolina 2 years later, called a Lang Cooper. It was the last of the King Cobras. It was a Cooper chassis with a body by Pete Brock, built by Don Edmonds, who was the sprint car guy. And so it was the last of the King Cobras. Well, someone must have called Shelby and was interviewing him and asked him how many of those he made. And I don't know. So I'm sitting at home 9 o'clock at night and the phone rings. Says, Bill, Shelby here. He said, what's up? Says, how many of those damn cars I make? I said, you made 8 of them. Thank you. That was a funny story. When he was the honoree, we were in the golf cart going down the fairway, and every time we'd stop, crowds would come around him like mosquitoes, and they were 4 and 5 deep. And this young guy comes up, really nice young man. He said, Mr. Shelby, my dad had a 68 GT350, one of only 15 made with a tissue dispenser or something like that. You remember? And Shelby goes, yeah, son, I remember. The guy went away with a great grin, and I drive off. I said, give me a break. He said, he's happy, I'm happy. He was a wonderful friend, and he would call every year just to wish us good luck. And just before he died, I gotta tell you another story about him. We were doing a thing one year called the Three Greats: Richard Petty, Don Garlitz, and Sterling Moss. They were going to be on the panel. The world's greatest drag racer was the world's greatest road racer was the world's greatest stock car racer. It doesn't get any better than that. So the Sunday before the concours, I get a call from Susie Moss that Sterling had fallen down the elevator shaft and broke both his ankles.
Oh, man.
Couldn't come. I said, what am I going to do? I promoted this all year long. Everybody's expecting Sterling Moss. So I figured, well, I'll just call my friend Carol Shelby and see if he'll come and fill in. So I called him up, and that's kind of funny, the three greatest. And then we said, we're going to call you. You're not really the greatest, but we'd like you to fill in. So I called him. Sterling fell down the elevator shaft. We talked about how Sterling was. All right, so I'm in a pinch. Can you help me out? He says, when do you want me? And I said, I need you Friday, which is, 5 days off. He says, call me back an hour. I called him back. He says, okay, here's the deal. I'll come, but I don't fly commercial. Can you send a plane for me? So RM put in some money and Mercedes-Benz put in some money. We leased a plane and flew him over. So we had a poster done. It was the three of them in black and white with Petty and Moss and Garlitz. But we had to change the poster. We had 4 days to do it. So we got an image of Shelby, and I emailed it out to him. He says, how's it look? He says, I look old. I said, Photoshop. We'll take care of it in Photoshop. we took about 10 years off of him. He was happy. He came terrific. And when you get an audience of car people, there's always some weenie in there that just makes you want to shoot them, So I tell my guys that hold the microphones or remote mics, do not give the microphone to the individual. If you give the microphone to the individual, you have given the diet. They're in charge. Hold the microphone. If they become a pain, just pull the microphone back. So this guy comes up and he goes, and one of my guys gives him the microphone. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Mr. Shelby, I thought about putting a V8 in a car, and he goes on and on and on about how he did this, he did that. And then he looked at Shelby and said, when did you think about putting a Ford engine in the Cobra? Kind of goes off the wall kind of thing. Shelby looked at him and said, October.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bobby Unser. It was, a great friend of yours. Can you share any great stories about him? We all said about passing.
Not all of them.
I know.
Bobby was not politically correct.
Yes.
But the funny thing that came up with me was he was our honoree, and the honoree gets 20 minutes to talk. And in the old days, we used to have the honoree stand up in front of a dais and talk. But later we found out we had to maintain some control. So we do a fireside chat now. But Bobby was up there by himself, and the dinner was sponsored by Mercedes-Benz.
Mhm.
And they're at the next table next to me, the Mercedes crowd, the executives. And Bobby gets up there and says, "It's nice to be here at Amelia Island." Says, "You know, I used to race for Audi." Mercedes-Benz people are looking down the table at me, smiling back at him. He says, "I learned one thing when I raced for Audi." Mercedes-Benz people are looking at me. "I learned that Germans hate Americans." Oh, God.
Oh, geez.
I'm sitting here floating down in my chair, and this rumble goes up in the audience, you know, and he hears it. He goes, no, it's true. Germans hate Americans." And he goes on, I live in Albuquerque, you know, and I used to drive over to Ascot in Los Angeles, and I used to drive through those Indian reservations. So I bought a plane to fly over all those Indians. Oh, God.
Oh,
He's in the 20-minute speech, and he's already killed the Germans and the Indians, and I'm about ready to die. He's looking for the hook. There were some other things he said that I would prefer not to say.
Of course.
But he was still fun, you know.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because Evie Gurney, Dan Gurney's wife, called me the week before and said, "Oh, I see you got Bobby." I said, "Yeah." He said, "How are you going to control him?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I used to be a public affairs officer in the Air Force. I dealt with nuclear weapons." She said, "You don't know what you're getting into here." I called Evie back on Monday and Evie.
I was fortunate to talk to him both times I was there. And I tell you, even he was in a wheelchair and everything. He was a
Yeah.
firecracker even then. He didn't
Oh,
stop
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, he was here last year. He sure was.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Mentally, he was sharp as a tack. And Lisa, his wife, took really good care of him and looked after him. It's, you know, I'll be 78 in a couple of weeks, and I'm thinking about how the years have gone by and how things have changed and what the Concours is going to look like in the future, because a lot of our heroes used to cross the line. You know, Dan Gurney would run the Motor Trend 500 for Chevrolet or Ford. He'd run Formula One, and he won Belgium the week after he won Le Mans with AJ Foyt. Ford, so he ran sports cars, Formula One, Indy cars, NASCAR. You don't have that nowadays. Although Jimmy Johnson has gone over to try Indy car racing, and Tony Stewart. I think Tony Stewart was the last of the AJ Foyt kind of guys, the outspoken. But it's become so commercial, so structured. It's almost, I would say, for the public and the television, it's become too sanitary. But it's gonna look different. We've got some people lined up for honorees that I think are pretty exciting. But I have to remember now, at my age, I should be identifying with a lot of the younger drivers, like Jeff Gordon. We're going to be working on getting Jeff Gordon.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of change going on. The one change I don't understand is this wildness for buying retro mod cars. I just don't understand them.
Retro.
Call them casket cars. They're cars you're going to get buried in.
Did you ever meet Ken Miles? If you don't mind me,
No,
you
I
ever
did
meet
not.
Ken Miles?
His son Peter, but I never knew Ken Miles. Peter Brock and I are good friends. We go back to 1970 when I was working for Sports Car Graphic Magazine, and knew Carol Shelby, knew Denny Holm. Never had the pleasure of meeting Ken Miles.
They depicted him in the movie like he was connected to the car like nothing else. So almost married to that car.
Yeah, I thought the movie was pretty entertaining if you separated yourself from some of the Hollywood touches.
Hollywood,
I thought they did a terrible job on BB. They made him look like a really evil guy, and I don't think he was. And and they kind of made fun of Henry Ford when he took a ride in the GT40. That never happened. I guess they have to do something. I don't know if they have to. They do things like that to entertain the non-automotive public.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to
Ian,
appeal
we
to
have
the
another
to the
question come up?
masses.
Yeah, just so Bill, you put on what I think anybody would admit is the best show What do you think are the secret ingredients, or maybe not so secret ingredients? What makes a great car show? What makes Amelia Amelia?
Do you want him to give away all his trade secrets, Ian?
It's easy. I've told everybody this. It's about the people.
Without a doubt.
It's having your heroes there. It's celebrating their career. It gets back to Gene Jennings and dead cars. Anybody can do a dead car show. You get a golf course, you put cars out on everybody. So I need to get something here to show you. Alex Borland is a wonderful friend, and we try to get creative in our trophies. And he's created this fabulous trophy of exhaust pipes. And you push a button and it roars like a car. You can program your own car's sound into it. So we'll do awards that are goofy, like best sound on the field, and we'll bring the car up and we'll be thumping and pumping, and Alex has this fabulous trophy. And it's about entertainment, but it's also about having a good time, and it's about sharing experiences with people we've always admired. That's the secret. And there's no secret.
Sounds like you give a car show some soul. It has heart.
It really is about the people, like he says. I mean, he really does. You call yourselves the friendly concours, right, Bill?
We try.
Yep.
Yeah, there are people who push that envelope for us.
Bill, I know you just mentioned having the heroes there helps create a great show. I have to say, I'm sure everybody here agrees you're one of our heroes.
Absolutely.
No, I'm just a car guy like you guys. I just bought a 32 Ford Highboy, which is an absolute killer of a car. And someone said, you don't look like a hot rod guy. Well, Concours guys, we don't hold our little pinkies out with teacups. We like cars. I bought this car was built in Fresno in 1950, 51. It's got a Mercury flathead, dog dish, white walls, trim ring, and I'm thrilled to death to have it. But alongside of it is an Eldorado Brome, and then alongside that is a Group 44 TR8. So my tastes are really eclectic.
What's in your collection? Do you have a small collection?
I got about 13 cars.
Okay.
I just bought last year. I took delivery on a C8 Corvette, which is fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, a lot of car.
I really love it.
It's a lot of car.
I don't know how they sell it for the price.
Right.
I wrote an article that said you can buy something that costs 3 times as much, but it'll depreciate in the first year more than this car costs. And the 8-speed gearbox is magic. I got a Ford GT. I got a Porsche 911 I bought new in 71 when you could buy a Porsche for $7,900.
Wow.
The Group 44 TR8. I had the TR6. I sold that to Adam Carolla because he collects Paul Newman cars, and the Group 44 car became the Paul Newman car, and then I got it. Raced it for 28 years and miss it. A 63 Buick Riviera. I always like the looks of those.
Yeah, it's a pretty car.
Gorgeous.
Let's see. Ferrari Daytona. I always like those.
That is
I love this
diverse collection.
I
Wow.
love this.
I love your story about your Ferrari Daytona with the window and all that. That's hilarious.
Well, this car was owned by the former vice president of General Motors, Chuck Jordan, and he was off in Europe one time, and the designers felt the boss shouldn't drive a Ferrari; he should drive a Corvette. So when he got back, they had taken it down to the design studios and done a Superfly conversion on it, the Rolls-Royce grill, all in foam core and tape. It had dual side mounts with rocket ship mirrors, a Rolls-Royce grill, a padded top with a diamond window, Ben-Hur hubs, fender skirts, everything. Totally tasteless.
Totally tasteless.
He must
Bill,
have been pissed.
I know you're very busy down there getting ready for the show. We really appreciate you giving us so much time today. But before you go, I have to ask you about your Cannonball run. We want you to come back and tell us the full story about your Cannonball experience, but just give our listeners a preview of coming attractions, please.
Oh, well, let's see. Let me ask a quick question. I see there's a Robert Sinclair on there. Is this the Robert Sinclair that used to be with Saab?
No, he's
Regrettably, no.
I mentioned that he was big on supporting the Cannonball. I ran that in 75. In my 71 911, I still got, we put a 31-gallon gas tank in it and ran it. And I didn't know it. My co-driver was Tom Neal, who I used to race with in Camaros. He didn't tell me that he couldn't stay awake at night.
He had narcolepsy and he was doing
Oh,
the
boy.
cannonball.
Then he couldn't talk on the CB radio. I said, well, I'll drive. You talk on the radio. Hello, fellows. I said, you can't talk to truckers like fellows. You got to be a good buddy. They're not my good buddy. I said, I don't care. Just act like a trucker. We didn't do so well on that. And then on the first one lap of America, which went from Darien to Boston to Detroit to Seattle, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Diego, back to Miami, Jacksonville, Richmond, one lap of America. So George Drolson, who used to run the Can-Am, was a neighbor of mine. So and Dick Starita, who I used to race against in SCCA. So then I got Road and Track to sponsor us, and they said, we got to take Ennis, Ireland. So we took Ennis. It was good. So the four of us, we went to Mercedes and asked for a wagon. They said, absolutely not. So we went to Audi, and because George was a Porsche Audi dealer, and they wouldn't give us a car. So we went and rented a Lincoln unlimited mileage town car from Kennedy Airport. Took it up to Bill Mitchell's shop in Cheshire, Connecticut. And Walter Hayes from Ford sent over heavy duty springs and shocks and sway bars. And CBA flew a guy in and mounted the lights, and we mounted the car and put 9,610 miles on it in 8 days and turned it in for $39 a day.
Love it. And he got
That is
mileage
such- that
points
is
or
such a
something
good
too, right?
story.
Well, yeah, he put it on his Pan Am card to get 2,000 bonus points.
Yeah.
Bill, what do you think of these guys that did the cannonball? And for people who don't know, the cannonball is the fastest time across America. For the guys that did it a year ago with COVID, when the roads were clear. I'm sure you heard that story, right?
Yeah, I have mixed emotions. A lot of Ed Bowling did it, and I think if you did it in normal days, that's one thing. Under COVID, when the roads were empty and other things were happening, and you had helicopters and electronic whiz bangs and everything, it kind of took it out of perspective. We were kind of running with a fuzz buster and a CB radio. That was it, and some extra road lights. Everybody has their time in the spotlight. It's anybody who can do it in under 30 hours it's absolutely a miracle. But we had road maps. We didn't have GPS.
Right.
Bill, I gotta
Bill,
ask.
I know.
Did you ever get lost?
You could probably spend
no.
all day telling us about Cannonball, right?
What's that?
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
you have to
I
come
have a-
back and tell us more about Cannonball.
Okay.
Alex, you have a question.
Fine.
Yes, we have an awful lot of AACA listeners on. I know that the AACA is very special to your heart, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been a member of the AACA for, I guess, 30 or 40 years. And Christmas for me was always going to Hershey.
Mm-hmm.
Hershey's changed a lot. I think eBay has changed a lot of what's going on at Hershey, unfortunately. It made it easier to find things, but Hershey to me is more of a social event now than anything else.
Mm.
Yeah. I've been going there for, I don't know, since 88 or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's
So,
yeah.
Bill, I know you're very busy down there getting ready for your show, so I really appreciate all your time today.
Well,
I'm sure
thank you.
everybody here does.
Thanks
But
so
come-
much.
Really an honor. Really
Thanks
an
Really an
honor.
honor to meet you, Bill.
Bill.
No, it's
Right.
my pleasure. Come down, have a good time.
I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
And come back after the show to tell us more about Cannonball, please.
Okay, Mike. Thanks so much. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bill.
David.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Bill,
was
we
amazing.
could spend all day.
Oh my
Let's talk
gosh.
Oh my
about
I know.
gosh.
That was-
I want to
Wow.
do 3 shows with him.
Oh
That's
my
a tough
God.
act to follow. Tough act to follow.
Amazing
Well,
guy.